I'm Gemma Allen with theCUBE and NYSE Wired, and we are here at the Agentic Studio at the AI Agent Conference in Manhattan, where we are talking all things builders, breakers, buyers, and bots for this next wave of tech. Joining me now is the CIO of WalkMe, Tal Carmi. Welcome, Tal.
Hello, thank you.
So for those not familiar with WalkMe, maybe let's just start with a quick, who are you, what do you do?
So WalkMe, we are an SAP company. We provide a digital adoption platform. We've been the first in that category and been leading it for like 10 years. And what we basically do is try and bridge the gap between people and technology. I think that would be the best way to describe it. How do I get people to adopt tools, which obviously now AI is probably the most revolutionary tool we've been having for ever, maybe. But that's what we do, right? We try and get companies to get more value out of their investment, because in general, many companies are not seeing the ROI they would have expected out of the tech stack. And with AI, I think that made it even worse, because the adoption challenge is real. And it's even, and I think like I've just been to the conference and you hear, doesn't matter who is speaking, in some way or another, everybody is speaking about adoption as the challenge.
So as a CIO, the value and the efficiency and the productivity, it starts at home, right? You want to make sure that within your own organization, you guys are what you sell, I'm sure.
Yes.
You were acquired by SAP, a huge company. I mean, it's monolithic, really. I'm sure the integration at this time is interesting, especially in the world of AI, where, you know, a lot of productivity tools, a lot of the typical tech cases, or, you know, the stack from 10 years ago is somewhat right up under discussion as to what it would look like 10 years from now. Talk to me a little bit about how you approach that as a CIO. Like, what are you buying for? What are you planning for?
So as a CIO, and right now, WalkMe, we are operating like I'm operating as independently, right? So it's our tech stack is independent, right? So it's not necessarily related to the SAP tech stack internal. But in general, the way I have no idea how it's going to look in 10 years, okay? I don't think anybody knows even how it's going to look in 2 years, let's be honest.
You're right about that.
All right, 2 years ago, it's like, oh, we have this new cool chat GPT thing. And now we're like, oh, agents, and what can we do? It's nobody knows. But in-house, we have been doing a lot of AI initiatives. We are very, like everybody says they're an AI first company, but we really are.
Okay.
We have been pushing internally, again, leveraging a variety of tools, including WalkMe, our own, of course, to try and get the maximum value we can out of AI. And it's been a journey, to be honest. I think right now, a lot of companies are trying to understand, okay, how do I get AI to actually have an impact on my business? And there is a lot of fluff out there. And it's very, like if you look at LinkedIn, everybody is fully agentic, 100%. Nobody's working anymore. But reality is very different. And I think there are two ways to approach it. And I think you need both of them. So you have like top down, me as management kind of saying, oh, we need to use AI. And let's choose what we're going to do with AI, right? But and then I have all the field. I have the actual employees that I want them to use AI for their day-to-day, which is bottom up. And I think you have to have both layers. If you only say, oh, use AI, okay, some of them will, some of them will not. Some of them will use AI that you don't necessarily want them to use, because you have your own, certified stack that you want people to use. And if you go bottom up alone, you might get a lot of little wins, but not necessarily anything strategic or anything that really had an impact. So that's the way I see it. And again, and adoption plays a key role in that again, right? Like that's what I'm saying. That's the biggest, I think, challenge is how do I let people, first of all, use it, to allow people to play in a, with the right guardrails, allow them to innovate, create, because that's what AI does. It really makes it much easier for whatever idea you have in your head to materialize it, which something that would have taken months earlier can be done much faster now, can be done by individuals. On the flip side, you have a lot of people who are sort of getting lost. They're not sure what tools they have. They're not sure how to use them.
So when we think about that first touch point, right, you have a big team, let's say in any practice area, a marketing team, right, and you say to them, you guys, we want you to explore this, we want you to play around with this. Typically in previous tech waves, like that would be tied to a hyperscaler, right? Like Microsoft release Teams, or we buy Slack or whatever, right? We start to kind of like embed these technologies and they're sticky, right? And we've seen cases whereby they're sticky for decades. When we think about this new world of kind of frontier LLMs, how sticky do you think this technology is? Like, right, are you going to have staff, playing around with Codex, playing around with Claude? What sorts of discoverability is happening, at the enterprise and at the business level?
You're right. That stickiness is a problem right now, because I don't know if you've seen this meme. You have like the big players, and then you have this little star saying, "Oh, you are here," and it's like who is the best model?
Yeah.
Right? And you get this sticker, oh, right now you're here.
It's changing every day,
yes,
right?
but next week you might be here. So it's like, it was like, oh, OpenAI or ChatGPT. And then it was like Claude. And then Gemini came over from Google. And like, oh, Gemini is the next thing. And then it's like, oh, no, forget about that. Now we're talking about Claude Desktop. Now like, oh, wait, have you tried the new Codex? And not even speaking about, the open source models that are out there that keep on like Kimi, right? And so it's a cycle. And DeepSeek, of course. So it's always it's a cycle. So if you keep on switching, it's kind of pointless. So at some point you're saying, okay, I'm going to stick with this for now. Maybe in a year's time or half a year, I will make a change, because everything is moving so fast. But the concepts are sticky. Are the tools really sticky right now? No, because like you would use, Claude, and it would have, and it just came out, and it was Claude Desktop, and you had Claude Code. And then you're like, oh, that's amazing. Everybody's been using it. It's like, oh, now Claude Desktop or Cowork. So you can actually have files, and you can have non-developers use it in a way that is very easy. And then they brought out skills. So people were trying to use it, and now you got this ecosystem, which is very Claude. You're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. It's mind-blowing. And now you have Codex supporting exactly the same concept. You're like, oh, if I need to migrate, okay, Codex can work with my skills. And so if you call that a harness in a way, right? Like Claude Desktop is a harness, Claude Code, Codex. I don't know. So tomorrow there might be somebody, and Microsoft has been pushing, saying, oh, why don't you use our Foundry, which is cloud-based. You can run agents, and we are LLM agnostic, right? Like you choose, you can switch.
What do you think as a CIO and as a buyer, I'm sure, of technology is the kind of, predictable and constant sticky point? Is it, for example, integration? Do you think about this stack and you think, well, we already use, say, for example, G Suite, so we might as well try, Gemini and see if we can make this work. Like, what do you think is really going to be the ultimate decider?
I think Google is and Microsoft, in a sense, depends on what shop you are. But I think they are very, because if Gemini comes, say, oh, I'm already connected to your Google Drive and to your Gmail and to your calendar, and you're native, the data is not moving anywhere that it's not right now, and sometimes from pricing point, it's included, right, or it's very low price. So they are very well positioned, because in the end, what we're seeing, it seems like some sort of commoditization of everything. Everything sort of becomes somebody, Claude brings something out, and then whatever, a month later, a quarter later, Codex now has the same capability, and now Codex has something new. So tomorrow Claude will have the same. So at some point it's sort of leveling out, and you're like, okay, so now is it becoming a pricing issue? I'm sure you heard about everything Anthropic has been going through for the last few months with the tokens and the pricing and everything getting out of hand, and some people actually switched, saying, okay, I can get the same job done much faster, much cheaper, much more reliable with whatever, provider X. And that's the state for now. A month from now, it might change again. So the stickiness, I'm not sure where it is, because the models are getting better, but they're catching up to each other.
It's tokenomics, right? Like, there's no two ways about it. But when you think about buying a technology and having it, embedded into your stack and ensuring that there's a predictability on cost,
That's very hard.
That's a tricky space right now, right? Like we have CFOs that come into the NYSE and sometimes say to us, I feel like I'm like a CTO because I need to understand this tech at a financial level that, I never really needed to do before, right? I'm sure from your perspective too, as a CIO, you have to think about, buying cycles and predictable finance in ways that you maybe didn't have to in the past. Like, how do you weigh it up?
It's hard because I think definitely for us, we are like a very SaaS-oriented company. You're used to the per seat, and you have, you know the price, and it's, as long as you know your headcount, you know the cost. And now it's not. And I think the world is moving to a consumption-based model, right? Like I think this is driving everything. Salesforce just came out with a headless announcement. So right now it's more marketing than actual any change, but it will become at some point. And I think more companies are moving to consumption-based, which changes everything in how you budget. And I think just like you had the rise of FinOps in the world of R&D, you're going to have it now for internal CIOs because it's the same challenge. So you work around it. You work with limits and you work with some guardrails of dashboard and monitoring but all of this is a cost side. What I think is still the challenge is like, even if I put the cost aside, let's assume AI, we want to use AI, we understand that's the future. How do we get the benefits out of it? Forget the cost. Okay, let's assume we don't have a cost issue. But how do I make sure people are actually using it? Like, and it's hard because you have I think it's a very large range. You will have people that are out there, they're doing cutting edge, everything new that comes out in Claude, they already know, they tried it, they burn through tokens, but they're also doing amazing things. On the flip side, you have people that are not even yet versed in asking whatever, your ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, just saying, hey, read my emails and tell me what's the status of the deal with X, or give me a summary of the status of this customer because I'm going into a meeting, right? And it's hard because it's fine that you have these edge guys doing crazy things. What, again, does it have value? Does it have value that is worth the cost? I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe not. But on the flip side, how do I get these people to use AI more? Because I want them to leverage AI. I gave you tools, but if you're not using them, and you have the in-betweens, right? So, true story, I woke up a week ago and I got a Slack message from a VP in my company saying, hey, I need an API key to Slack. I'm like, oh, okay. And she's not a technical person. And I'm like, why do you need that? Like, I'm like, I don't think she had ever seen the word API key before. I'm like, why do you need an API key? It's like, oh, I'm building an agent. I'm like, interesting. What for? And then eventually it was just, she was really trying to do something very cool. She just didn't know that, Claude has a native connector to Slack. And weirdly, Claude didn't tell her. It just went, oh, I'll write some code for you that you can run and it will get you what you need, but I need an API key for. So there is also this gap. So, and you want to allow people to run forward. And on the flip side, you want to have some guardrails. So, not everybody.
So on one side, you have the risk of inertia, people having access to a tool and you paying a price that, isn't being utilized. On the other side, you have people potentially at home uploading documents to an LLM, right? Like there is a super user and then there is a non-believer. When we think about the super users, what are your thoughts on the risk of that? Like how are CISOs or, folks even in your own company from a security and governance perspective really monitoring for that? People using these LLMs, using classified information from their Outlook or whatever it might be at home to just make their lives easier. I mean, we're all guilty of it, right? It's tempting.
Yes, I agree. And I think the shadow AI is much bigger than shadow IT, but it's the same root cause. If you have tools that are good enough, because nobody wants to go rogue, right? People do that because, like you mentioned, it's very tempting because I can do all of this, which in unsanctioned tools, which I cannot do with the tools I have. So first of all, try and get them the tools that are, hopefully cutting edge, and if not, at least they are as good as, so they don't feel that, oh, you make me ride a horse, but there is a car, right? That is not sanctioned. And I think that there is a very big gap also, and you're right, always between what we just have we have an annual report called the State of Digital Adoption, which we have been running for a few years. And one of the things that are to me stuck out, like really one in the report I saw, it was like 80%, or I don't remember the number, 80, 70% of executives thought that they are giving amazing tools to their employees, but if you ask the employees, the number is like, I don't remember, I think 20% or something. And then when you ask them about AI, how good is AI doing really complicated jobs? Executives like 80%, yes, it can do it. Then you ask employees and it's like 8% believing. That, I don't know where the truth is, but it's definitely somewhere in the middle. And part of that is sometimes employees don't even know what they have.
Yeah.
So part of what we do in-house, how we use WalkMe, right? We try to give you contextual AI where in your flow of work. So the example I gave, you can ask Gemini today, based on my emails, give me the status of this meeting and give me talking points for my next meeting with them. It will give really good results. When I showcase that to AEs, just ask them, hey, open your Gemini, connect it to your Gmail, and type this prompt. They saw the results and their head exploded. But a lot of times they just didn't know that you could do that. And even after I showed them, a large part of them just forgot about it, because we're humans, right? So you're used to the way you work. And then we did the thing that if you're recognizing an email from a customer, we would just sort of ping you, hey, do you want to summarize this? Like get a summary of the status of the deal? Now, it's a button. It's right there. You don't need to go to Gemini or Claude or anywhere and type that. You just click on it and it gives you the answer. And not surprisingly, you see much better adoption. So it's a lot of things. So it's not just the tools. It's like you mentioned, how do I get people to actually use the tools? Like we built an internal, everybody does it now, like an internal sort of RAG engine. You can ask it, what is the status of this customer? It will pull data from everywhere and will give you a status. Or give me a SWOT analysis, prepare me for the next QBR, whatever you want, and it will do it. But many people either didn't know this tool existed, and even if it did, they would just go and use oh yeah, they told me it can do the status. So give me the status of account X, and it will. But you're like, why aren't you using the rest of the capabilities we have? They didn't know. And then we just use, us internally we use WalkMe, but to sort of show them like 5 or 10 different options, you click on it, all it does is take that information, plugs it into the tool and press enter for you, right? And all of a sudden, people used it.
Well, I guess it's the age-old problem, right? People process technology. But Tal Carmi, it's certainly a fascinating time to be a CIO at this mad moment where we are building things that we probably didn't even know would be a possibility 10 years ago. Thank you so much for coming on theCUBE. Great chatting to you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Gemma Allen here at the Agentic Studio at the AI Agent Conference in New York with theCUBE and NYSE Wired. We're talking all things builders, bots, buyers and breakers for this next wave of tech. Stay tuned.